Hi, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is a really full chapter. Talks about motivating employees. This is one of the most difficult and challenging things a business owner or a teacher can possibly have to deal with. So we look at the learning objectives first. Explain Taylor's theory of scientific management. By the way, what we're going to see here in this chapter is a lot of scientific investigation into management technique. Describe the Hawthorne studies and their significance to management. Identify the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and apply them to employee motivation. This is something, if you took Psychology 101, you probably did some studying of Maslow's hierarchy. Distinguish between the motivators and hygiene factors identified by Hertzberg. Then we're going to differentiate among three theories: the X theory, Y theory, and Z theory. Explain the key principles of goal setting, expectancy, and equity theories. Show how managers put motivation theories into action through strategies like job enrichment, open communication, and job recognition. And finally, we're going to look at how managers personalize motivation strategies to appeal to employees across the globe and across generations. So, what makes us satisfied at work? What makes us happy there? The things that make us happy can't be overstated. The things that make us unhappy can't be overstated even more. Loss of intellectual capital, decreased morale of remaining workers. Think about the last job you had where somebody got laid off, somebody got fired. What was the first thought in your mind? Am I next? Increased employee stress, increased employee gossip. That certainly happens when there's not a whole lot of communication about what's happening. Decreased customer service, interrupted product development, and a poor reputation, which can damage a company's ability to get the best possible employees. Employees' level of motivation, passion, and commitment. That's the definition of engagement. It's the same definition I would use for students. Disengaged employees act out their unhappiness at work and undermine the efforts of their coworkers. So if you've ever been at work and you had somebody came up to you and said they really hate their job, right? Or they hate coming to work, or it's a miserable day, or they don't get paid enough. These kinds of attitudes of disengaged employees tend to spread amongst all the employees. The level of satisfaction at every step along an employee's path at a company. That's the employee's experience from the day they get hired and they go through orientation through the day they leave to move on to go somewhere else. What motivates people? Two basic things here: intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. What is an intrinsic reward? It's a reward that makes me feel good, a reward I feel inside when I'm given a responsibility and I fulfill that responsibility and I succeed at the task. It gives me personal satisfaction. Extrinsic rewards are things that are given to me. That's the year-end bonus, the tickets to a ballet, tickets to a concert, that sort of thing. Extrinsic reward. The intrinsic rewards, in my opinion, are much more important. Frederick Taylor. Taylor invented scientific management to increase worker productivity to benefit both the firm and the worker. So the things that Taylor looked at: time, methods of work, and the rules of work. So Taylor went in, he studied the way a job was being done. He'd have people standing there and actually watching employees work, and they'd have a stopwatch, and they'd be timing how long it took for each particular step of the job. They'd put it all together. Then they start to look at different methods. Can we change it, make it better? When they finally came up with a better method, they codified it, they created rules. that adhered to the method that they chose. Then the workers would be chosen to match those rules. So you find people who have the skills that you're looking for that will fulfill those different areas. And finally, you have to establish a fair level of performance, a measurement of how well the job is being done, and pay people accordingly. Taylor's technique, a lot of times, this time and motion studies. Efficiency became the standard for setting the goals. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth worked with motion economy. How can we boil down what a person does into discrete pieces, discrete motions, and then determine how best to do those motions, how to make them most efficient? Maybe we get rid of some. The Hawthorne effect had to do with research, excuse me, from a team at Harvard. They investigated different types of lighting. Excuse me. And they wanted to see if different light conditions would change the way people worked. And what they found was that human-based motivation by showing employees behave differently simply because they were involved in planning and executing the experiment. So because people were involved in the experiments, that changed the way they behaved. It had nothing to do with the lighting itself. Maslow came up with what's called a hierarchy of needs. So Maslow came up with 5 levels of needs. The bottom level, physiological, water, food, shelter. Those are things that you have to have. Once those needs were met, Maslow says, then you move to the next level, safety needs. How do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? When the safety needs are met, I now move to social needs. I need to talk to people. I need to have friends. I need to have connections outside my family. When I meet those needs, I'm then looking for esteem needs. That's the intrinsic rewards, the intrinsic value that we have in each of us. And when those are met, we then reach the pinnacle, which is called self-actualization, which is where we actually perfect ourselves. Hertzberg asked workers to rank various job-related factors in order of importance relative to motivation. So let's see what they did. Number 1, sense of achievement. Number 2, earned recognition. Are we seeing a pattern here? Number 3, interest in the work itself. Number 4, opportunity for growth. Number 5, opportunity for advancement. I've read numerous white papers and researches in regards to what motivates employees, and the number 1 factor is not money, as much as we might think so. It's being told you did a good job, getting recognition for your work. That's number 1. That's why we look at 1 through 7 here, and they're all intrinsic. We don't get to money until number 8. Motivators made employees productive and gave them satisfaction. Again, we're talking about motivation in regards to what gives employees a good feeling about their job, mostly related to job content. Hertzberg's hygiene factors are related to the job environment. They don't necessarily motivate. So let's look at the motivators first from Hertzberg. The work itself. So is the work important? Does it have value? Does it have meaning? Do I feel like I'm making a contribution? Achievement and recognition. Those are all motivators. Those are things that keep us going. Responsibility and growth and advancement. Is there something for me beyond this job? And we look at the hygiene factors, which we're also calling maintenance. These factors can cause dissatisfaction, but they're not going to motivate you. Company policy and administration, supervision, working conditions, these are all things that could turn me off to the job, but they're not things that are going to make me work harder. And here we have a comparison. Here's Maslow's five layers and Hertzberg, and you'll notice that many of them are the same. What's at the top of the list here? Self-actualization, esteem, motivational, work itself, achievement, possibility of growth. Those are at the top of Maslow's list. Ways to reinvigorate your work life. Take on new challenges to help eliminate boredom. The last thing you want to do is become bored at work. You want to get change. If you're working at a company, I just had an employee. I just had a student ask me about a job, and he said that he liked the job. I said, well, is there room for advancement? He said, well, there's only 2 people above me, and they're never going to leave. I said, so there's no room for advancement. So what's going to be new for you? How can you improve? How can you move beyond where you are? Really can't. Take on new challenges sometimes means go get a new job. Redecorate your space to get away from the same old, same old. Don't complain. Think about the last time you complained about school, for example. You complained about your job. I hate the job. I don't get paid enough. I hate the guy I work for. I hate the people I work with. I'm doing the same thing day in and day out. Complaints only make us feel worse about the job. And it also tends to bring other people down as well. If we think about the things we like about the job, then we can celebrate those things. We can feel better about ourselves. Help others advance in their careers. These are kind of tied. All right, we get to McGregor has 2 theories, Theory X and Theory Y. And think about these as we work through them. The average person dislikes work and will avoid it if possible. Because of this dislike, workers must be forced, controlled, directed, or threatened with punishment to make them put forth the effort to achieve the organization's goals. This is Theory X. The average worker prefers to be directed, wishes to avoid responsibility, and has relatively little ambition and wants security. Finally, primary motivators under Theory X are fear and punishment. Imagine yourself in a position where the company takes Theory X as their position. Now we're going to look at Theory Y. Theory Y says most people like work. Most people naturally work towards goals to which they are committed. The depth of a person's commitment to goals depends on the perceived rewards for achieving them. And as we said before, a lot of times that reward is simply going to be a job well done. Something from above, something from a manager, a supervisor, the owner of a company who says, I really liked what you did there. Under certain conditions, most people not only accept, but also will seek responsibility. Most people like that. Most people want to take on new things, new responsibility, because that gives us a chance to shine. We can do something we've never done before, we succeed, and again, we have those intrinsic rewards. People are capable of using a relatively high degree of imagination, creativity, and cleverness to solve problems. In industry, the average person's intellectual potential is only partially realized. Most of us use only 10% of our brain. Imagine if we used more, 50%, 80%. People are motivated by a variety of rewards, and the rewards have to be specific to the person because we all have different values on different rewards. Theory X managers don't live to make their employees happy. We kind of got that from the way it was described, didn't we? For example, Charlie Ergen, the founder and chair of Dish Networks, makes employees work long hours and a whole lot of mandatory overtime with few paid holidays. Employees describe the Ergen-created company culture as one of condescension and distrust. Yet, the company's earnings have consistently beat market expectations. How is that possible? It's real simple. If you're pushing people to work harder and harder, you're hiring less people, you're saving money on labor, you're still getting efficiencies, you make more money. Would you prefer to work for Theory X or Theory Y manager? Most of my students say Theory Y sounds a lot better to them. 3 steps to empowerment. 1, find out what people think the problems in the organizations are. This requires communication. Let them design the solutions. And when we're asked to be involved in coming up with solutions to problems that we've discovered, we're more invested in those. Get out of the way, let them put those solutions into action. This is very different than Theory X, isn't it? This is much more a Theory Y proposal. William Uchi researched cultural differences between the US. He had type A was the US, type J was Japan. So if we look at this graphic rather, let's look at some of the characteristics of the type A American worker. Short-term employment, individual responsibility, explicit formalized control, individual decision making. So now let's go to the other side and look at the Japanese side. Lifetime employment. This is something that the Japanese have promised forever. Consensual decision making. So everybody working together as opposed to individual decision making on the type A side. Slow evaluation and promotion. Since you have lifetime employment, there's no rush to move ahead. When we look at type Z is a modification of the American with some Japanese characteristics. Obviously, the first 2 are for sure. Long-term employment and collective decision-making. Number 3, individual responsibility. That comes from the type A side. Slow evaluation and promotion, that's from the Japanese. So this is kind of a nice blend of the characteristics of both type A and type J. You can review these on your own. This is essentially a comparison of X, Y, and Z. All right, we're going to stop here and we will pick this up again in part 2.